Hi everyone and welcome to Football Friday Night, our webcast as we get ready for Week 10 of the season. Hard to believe we're that far into it. I'm Bobby Ford. This is Walt Moody, the sports editor here at the Winchester Star. And we're going to be talking about what actually will be the final week of the regular season for a couple of our teams, the end of the road for one of them along the way. On Friday night, we have George Mason at Clark County as Clark finishes up its regular season. Millbrook is at Liberty. Sharando is at Fauquier. And then Saturday, James Wood will be at Handley for the season finale for the judges. Well, let's first of all talk about Clark County as the Eagles finish up their regular season, and they'll face George Mason.
Yep, the Eagles are still tops in the region rankings. They have played one more game than Central, which defeated them earlier this year, but the Eagles seem to be rolling along. Coming off a 61-10 win over Madison County last week. George Mason is not rolling along. After going 5-0 to start the season, Mason has lost 3 in a row. The last 2 been by combined score of 101-16. Last week, as has many teams this year so far, they got smoked by Central. Central won 52-8. When you talk about Clark, it's Peyton Rutherford. Another big game last week. He's almost at the 1,800-yard mark heading into the last game. It's pretty stunning numbers this year for him. He's scored 176 out of Clark's 277 points. And he's also gained more total yardage, more than half of the Eagles' total yardage. He has been getting a little help, though. Kyle Baylor's been coming on toward the end of the season, and Baylor's up to about 650 yards and 7 touchdowns. Defensively, Brian Wallace continues to lead the Eagles. He's got 96 tackles, and he's got 11 sacks. So he's expected to put some pressure on the Mustangs' offense.
Oddly enough, Clark County's bye week is next week as the regular season finishes up, but the Eagles will definitely be in the regional tournament come 2 weeks from now. 2 other teams hoping to be in the regional tournament, although up a level into Group 4, Sharando and Millbrook, and both of those teams will be in Fauquier County playing games on Friday night. Sharando has a game at Fauquier.
Yes, the Warriors are a face of team Fauquier who ended a losing streak last week, and they dominated. Falcons dominated against James Wood 38-8. Kevin Chavis is the guy to talk about when you're talking about Fauquier. He rushed for 3 touchdowns against the Colonels last week. He's almost at 1,000 yards. Fauquier could possibly give the Warriors a little bit of trouble, but it doesn't seem like it because Sharando certainly has been rolling. The Warriors are 5th right now in the regional rankings, so they want to keep winning and moving on. Last week against Handley, it was no contest. The Sharando was up 52-0 at halftime and cruised to a 59-14 win. T.J. Washington scored 4 touchdowns. He ran for 2, caught 1, ran another punt back for a touchdown. That's his 3rd punt return for a touchdown this year. And Hunter Insminger threw for 3 touchdown passes. So very tall chore for the Falcons to be able to not upset the Eagles. Upset the Warriors, rather, excuse me.
Right. Now, with only 6 teams making the Region 4C postseason, being in 5th place, huge game for Sharando. They may also be doing a little scoreboard watching about what's going on across Fauquier County as Millbrook is facing Kettle Run in a game that facing Liberty in a game that's going to go a long way in determining who wins the Northwestern District.
Yeah, and you sort of mentioned Kettle Run. Liberty's in a little bit of different position this week, thanks to Kettle Run. Right. Liberty had a 19-point lead last week against Kettle Run and then lost it and was upset 27-26. Liberty dropped from number 1 down to number 2 in the rankings, moving Millbrook back up to number 1. And it's Millbrook can really thank its defense for coming on the way that the Pioneers have played toward the end of the season. Defensively, the Pioneers over the last 3 games have allowed 21 total points. You allow a touchdown a game, you're going to do pretty well. Offensively, we know a lot about the Pioneers. Savon Smith can score in so many different ways. Quarterback Isaac Brown has thrown the ball very well. He's got a lot of good receivers in Savon Smith, Gavin Eversearch, and Jordan Jackson. They present a lot of problems for teams. Liberty is trying to work in their quarterback, who was supposed to be the starter this year but was hurt. Raymond Morton has played the last 2 games. They maybe haven't been quite as cohesive now that he's back. He did throw for 2 touchdown passes last week. And when you're talking about Liberty, they've got some big playmakers, running back Lester Parker and receiver slash Wildcat quarterback Markel Gaskins. Everybody expects this one to be a really good one. A lot of people think maybe Liberty was looking ahead to this one last week.
All right, well, we'll see how that goes Friday night. Now, Saturday afternoon, Hanley, because of a quirk in the schedule, actually finishes up its season on Saturday. They'll face their longtime rival James Wood at the Hanley Bowl.
And 2 teams desperately looking for a win to end the season. Wood will finish up the following week with Kettle Run, so a pretty tough game for them. Both teams struggled last week. Wood offensively, it was a terrible night in Fauquier County. At Fauquier, the Colonels had 5 turnovers and 4 first downs. Not exactly a recipe for success there. As we mentioned before, Hanley trailed at halftime 52-0 and scored a couple of touchdowns late on Sharando's reserves. If you look at this one, Wood, the key for Wood has been all year has been blocking. When the Colonels block well, their bunch of running backs have managed to gain some yardage and move the ball. Last week, the only offense was a 93-yard kickoff return by William Crowder for a touchdown. Hanley is the last few weeks has had Malachi Emo playing a quarterback, sort of a quarterback slash wildcat kind of guy. He does throw the ball. Hanley threw the ball 13 times last week, and Emo scored both of the touchdowns in the second half rushing. So 2 teams really need a win, really don't like each other, so it should be an interesting afternoon at the Hanley Bowl.
It'll certainly be a nice win for one of those 2 teams on Saturday.
Bad taste in the mouth for the other if they lose.
All right, make sure you follow us on Inside the Winchester Star on Saturday morning and also Monday morning for the Hanley-James Wood game. You can see those stories online at winchesterstar.com. And make sure you follow us on Twitter at WinStarSports1 for updates throughout the game. We'll see you next week.